Welcome to Dead Genre Chronicles, a critical podcast on the diversity of JRPGs. Drawing from the origin of the genre to the present day, every month we play through a JRPG and we invite you to play along and send us your questions and thoughts on it. I'm Devin, bearer of the Esoteric Eyes.
I'm Becky. Xenofactory is my favorite Tetsuya Takahashi game.
I'm Leroy, and I would not want to die with Kanata either.
No one does.
So I was actually going to use that joke myself, and then I thought of this one instead, and
they're both
I'm glad I
good.
left it to you because you delivered it better.
Leroy is good at deadpan delivery, then he breaks immediately because he laughs at his own dumb joke. It's perfect. So this month we're going to be talking about Exist Archive, which is an isekai light novel turned tri-ace game. Quick definition for those of you who aren't awful anime nerds. Isekai is a term used to mean another world. E is a particle, and then sekai means world. So isekai means another world. Basically, it's when someone from a familiar setting to us basically is transplanted into a fantastical setting. Ni no Kuni being named Another World.
Yeah.
I kind of gave shit to Becky for months and years ago. God, it's been so long. Would also be an isekai thing, but that was more, Ghibli than isekai light novel, which is what this game is.
For total clarity, there is no Exist Archive light novel. It just feels like there is.
It feels like it's the sweat dripping off of every other isekai light novel turned into a new tri-ace game, which is weird.
Another way to say is it's inspired by contemporary Japanese literature.
That's the most generous thing I've heard you say about this game.
It's just true. It's true.
Yeah, sure.
That's technically accurate. This game, we all powered through it a lot faster than I thought we would.
Yeah, so I've played this before, not long after it came out, and I didn't finish the game. I got to the start of the final major segment of the plot, and my file for that file was just over 50 hours, and I don't think any of us took as much as 50 hours to actually finish the game this time round.
Yeah, I think I just crossed the 50-hour line.
Okay. But yeah, so we've been finished with it for 10 days or something.
Yeah.
Which is a surprise, because we didn't exactly start early. And in some ways it's heavy going, but we all played it really quickly. I enjoyed it. That's my excuse. What have you two got to say for yourselves?
I wanted to play anything else.
I enjoyed it at first, and then it was kind of a sunk cost thing when I was 60 hours in and at the end of it, and I'm like, oh, what am I going to do now?
Well, you did all the optional endings as well, which doesn't help.
That was the thing I was going to do after. I was like, well, I'm very high level, so I'll do all the stupid stuff. And it was my plan was to do the post game, but after I beat the ultra boss, I was like, actually, what the fuck else is there to do? I'm not going to do this other stuff, and I stopped.
It's fair enough.
Yeah, basically the last day I worked proper was the 19th, and I was just like, okay, I'm going to work on this video game because I want to finish it. And then I ended up staying up until 5 a.m. and I just blasted through the last 25% of the game pretty much. And then I was just like, okay, I'm going to go pass out, and then sometime in the next week I'll go get the other endings. And then I didn't because I realized I was free.
Yeah, 10, 15 hours in, I was planning to do 100% playthrough and be the third person on Earth to get all the trophies.
In English.
In English,
Because there was, Leroy pointed out that a lot of people who were going to play this game picked this game up in Japanese.
True.
And got the trophies there.
I was looking at old threads, and actually all the people who like this game are people who imported it. Anyone who got the localization and played it basically didn't like it.
I mean, I think that says more about the kind of person who buys import games and is invested enough in
Tri-ace?
The culture, or tri-ace maybe, to do that, rather than about the localization, which is questionable in places, but functional mostly.
No, yeah, I'd actually totally agree with that. I would say, the people who play JRPGs are importing games, And the people who like Final Fantasy are like, maybe I'll try Exist Archive, and then go, oh my god, what is this? I thought this would be like Valkyrie Profile, etc.
It's like Valkyrie Profile in some ways, in that it's literally the actual passages of play are exactly the same system. It's just the kind of narrative and the way the narrative is presented is completely different.
Yeah, I would say it's like Valkyrie Profile, like I Am Setsuna's like Chrono Trigger, which there is some structural and formal like nods to each other, but
no, I think that's a fair comparison actually. But it's an interesting game for the following reason, which is it came out in late 2016, just before this like huge wave of major titles emerged. There was a ramp up. There was like Star Ocean 5, this, World of Final Fantasy, and then you get into your FF15, Persona 5, Nier Automata, that bundle of games.
Berseria,
well. Which, I mean, we're the only people who think Berseria is a major thing.
That's not true. That's not true, actually. Well, NeoGAF.
It was true of Zestiria.
Yeah, it was true of Zestiria, but Berseria actually crossed over to the old guard JRPG fan base. I don't know what else to call it.
The people who have played Vesperia and nothing else.
Maybe.
Basically.
Yeah. Still people that we can be bitter about.
The people in their 20s and 30s who still play JRPGs.
So us, then.
I mean, yes, we're implicated.
You need to be a little more specific than that.
But, like, it came out in that period, and it's clearly if you like, for its publishing bracket, which I think distinguishes it from I Am Setsuna, it is clearly the lowest budget game from that whole swathe. And the low budget shows in all sorts of ways. But I'm going to keep coming back to this fact. I liked this game. I enjoyed playing it. It was stupid in places, but what video game isn't? But it's an interesting portrait of what trying to do an almost AAA release on a shoestring budget looks like in 2016.
See, that by itself is not that interesting because I played a Compile Heart game before.
Yeah.
But I mean, Exist Archive is... Actually, that's probably about as good as a Compile Heart game. I can't say it's better.
It's basically a Compile Heart game mashed up with Castlevania movement, which is just like, I've made this point before. We're gonna put some fucking Castlevania on the docket at some point. We've been talking about maybe Bloodstained if it comes out, and comes out soon. But like, basically one of the things that categorizes like the Metroidvania era of Castlevania that kind of recently ended with like Lords of Shadow and that whole departure into God of War territory, basically, or more general action game stuff, is movement options and how they let you express yourself within the spaces. And the thing is, the spaces in Castlevania games are generally pretty memorable, and I never had that experience except with the worst dungeon where you have to go down 5 different paths to hit 5 different switches to open a warp gate you see at the beginning of the fucking forest. And that's just because that sucks.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, it's kind of a Compile Heart game, but it is so unutterably tri-ace.
I liked the Forest Gate one a lot more than the Lost Forest dungeon.
Fuck that place.
I'm also fucking still, like, because I made this point, I realized this as I was doing it. The Lost Forest quest, which is Ranze's crystal, is literally just stealing a puzzle from Tales of Grace's F, the Lineage and Legacies edition, where there's just a forest full of warp mazes, and you have to follow the fucking butterflies.
Fuck that level!
It's like once you realize what they're trying to telegraph, which is itself an echo of one of the more annoying puzzles in Tales of Symphonia, unless you realize that this is what they're trying to convey to you. Where, like, if you're in the Palma Costa Ranch, you can use the radar ring to reveal, like, enemies and items and teleporters. And in this, like, warp maze, basically, there will be always respawning enemies that are only visible in radar mode next to the warp pad you need to take to progress to the exit. So, no matter where you are, if you get lost, you can follow those to the end of the maze. And they echoed that in Grace's F, which is cool, and you didn't need, like, an extra thing to tell you, oh, hey, there's butterflies, I should follow where the butterflies are going, and I'll get out. no matter how many like different side paths you went down, cool. The Lost Forest just copies the Grace's F thing, but doesn't have a dungeon worth exploring outside of the path that you need to follow, basically, because the spaces in this game really aren't interesting, and the items you get from chests at the end of paths that you don't need to take, they're not good. Ever.
They're useless.
They're not often good. Like, in the last couple of dungeons, they get good.
Well, there'll be one treasure chest that'll have one item you can only get in treasure chests, such as like the revives or something. And then the rest of the chests will be like chance to poison all enemies items and crap.
Yeah. I guess to go back to the Castlevania thing, like what makes Castlevania games work is that they are place games. And this is true, I think, also for Super Metroid, although I'm not terribly fluent in either game. And this game wants to have the kind of the movement frame of a Castlevania-ish game, but it's not a place game at all. It's not really interested in its locations. It's about, well, as you say, like novel stuff. It's about kind of ordinary teenage character relationships. So in that sense, it's a mismatch of game concept and narrative concept.
And the problem is the levels are extremely big, despite being like very, very drab. And I would say there's like 5 levels in the game, except you have to you'll play like variations, repetitions of the same looking level with probably the same rooms, like 6 times per each biome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really reminiscent of any compile art game, because you're just like, oh, I recognize this entrance tile, but like, oh, that's this room attached to it instead of this other room that I recognized from the last dungeon. Like, if you've played a Neptunia game, you recognize the sort of modular build of this kind of design ethos.
It doesn't even have to be... you can go ahead.
Sorry, it's also Whisper It Resonance of Fate, right? What Resonance of Fate wasn't actually modular in that exact sense, but it was repetitive in the same way, in that every area looked basically the same, but had a slightly different arrangement of crates and ramps and shit.
I don't think so, actually. Resonance of Fate reminded me of like a first-person dungeon crawler, except stripped and transformed into a third-person one, which reminded me of Atlus's PS2 offerings, except more boring looking. Which, because the Resonance of Fate is just trying to create like a top-down shape where every single tile is going to look the same, which is what a dungeon crawler, like an old dungeon crawler, is like.
I suppose.
But Exist Archive like has platformer 2D shapes. Like you look at it, and there's a way you're supposed to move through the screen, which Resonance of Fate doesn't have that because it's just always going to be the same square. But I liked the first time I'd go through a dungeon Exist Archive, but there will be later levels where you'll be going through they'll just attach the same 3 rooms together, and they're the exact same 3 rooms. You just walk through the same thing 3 times, and I'm just like, whoa.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of... Remember there was an AGDQ moment, I think, where 2 people were running Quest 64, and they were tracing the exact same line through what looked like the identical same room, but they got to a door, threw it at the same time, and came out into entirely different areas. Because it's just like fucking video games. Like, sometimes they reuse that shit, and it's like, Shadow Hearts did this too, with like the single backgrounds that they used multiple times in the same dungeon, but they used those as a sense of like disorientation, and it made it harder to read the dungeon because it was supposed to be something you get lost in. And this is just like, you have a map. You can't really get lost.
That goes back to the budget thing, right? That is, we need this game to be 50 hours long because it's a Japanese RPG that's going to be released in America, maybe. So it needs to be 50 hours long. And if it was 15 hours long, which is about what the total amount of stuff that they've actually designed for this game is maybe 15 hours. And then it's just repeated over and over. It would be a much better game if it was shorter.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's an interesting exercise to think about how much could be cut, but definitely half the characters. And the fact that every character has basically 2 backstory levels, because they have their crystal level, but also each of them has a generic crystal hunt quest, which the crystals in are about them for no reason.
I would agree that you could cut half the characters, but I also think Exist Archive does better with a cast of 11 characters? I don't know, I just
12.
can't remember. Is that including Kagato or not?
That's including Kagato.
That's including.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then Final Fantasy VI does with the same number. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not inclined to disagree with that. I like the cast, but also, like, it'd be very, very easy to cut 4 at no detriment to the game, and probably more than 4.
Yeah, I think part of the thing is, like, when it comes to larger casts like this, what usually happens is you end up, instead of characterizing each character individually, you characterize them as cliques. So, like, you have the Ranzei, Kanata, Mitsuhide, and Koharu group that's basically one collection of characteristics. You have Suzaku and Kiria, who have backstory in our world. Then you have Namaro, and then, like, Ren. But, like, Namaro and Ren are basically isolated because they're...
Namaro is Suzaku's bodyguard. Like, there is a connection there. It's just one way.
Yeah, it's just one way, and they're mostly... But, like, they characterize him because he's, like, a mercenary, not just, like, some random Yakuza. So, like, I feel like he and Ren have more, like, isolated characterization, as well as Yui, who is good, but arrives way too late to get, like, any hefty, like, space in my memory. Because, like, I did most of the grinding before I got her, and so I saw a lot of character scenes that didn't have her, which is just how this game shakes out.
After each mission, there's the results screen, and sometimes on the results screen there's a little extra cutscene. There is a pretty... obnoxious is not quite the right word. I'm trying to avoid saying anime because, like, I hate the use of anime as an adjective, but, like, the way that word is used as an adjective, it's kind of appropriate here. Series of spin-offs from Yui's character, which are they're unfortunate, let's say, to do with various other characters trying to get her figure and getting confused about what she thinks is the asset of her figure and stuff.
And I didn't catch any of that, so, like...
You probably, like, that's probably for the best.
I also skipped out on that winky face emoji warning labeled cutscene.
That's the cutscene you're talking about, is the one that has a winky face emoji warning on it.
Is it?
Yeah. No.
Or are there more?
The thing I was talking about is a series of extra, like, optional missable scenes.
Like the character conversations after coming back from missions?
Yeah, them.
Well, okay.
But yeah,
I didn't see that many that actually had to do with Yui's figure from those. Usually the ones I got were Ren and Yui were often bonding over their love of Sentai, or Yui would be talking about her cooking and teaching Mayura cooking and stuff like that. It was actually usually wholesome, the interactions I got with Yui.
God damn it! I clearly, I didn't get her relationship with either Ren or Mayura terribly high.
Yeah,
I use Ren or Mayura a lot, so I clearly missed out on the good stuff.
They ended up being like a clique, Mayura, Ren, and Yui, because they all like Sentai.
That's really good. God damn it! Make the Yui game.
That is the major problem with a large ensemble cast that you try to, like, make. They're basically, like, figures you want to make interact and give them characterization through that. And that's, like, what Fire Emblem does.
Yeah.
That's most of the bulk of the characterization in Fire Emblem. But with this, it's random after every mission, and it depends on the affection. So if you're not using certain characters together, they just won't happen. And the pool of them is large enough that even if they do, like, you just might not fucking see them because they only happen, like, 1 or 2 at a time.
And Mayura, Ren, Yui is a bad combination because it's 3 casters as well. So, yikes, that would be a hell of a thing to try to get all of. Dang.
I mean, it would just be a matter of having 2 of them in a party at a time and rotating.
That's why it happened to me. I actually used Ren and Mayura a lot, and I used Yui and Ren sometimes. And that's why they ended up, like, getting close together. But,
yeah.
I was...
Anyway, sorry, to go back to the start of the conversation, I got Yui before I did most of my grinding, so I did see more of her. Yui is good.
When I got deep into post-game, I was still getting those scenes, though, so there's, like, a lot of them.
Yeah,
they're just completely random how they're distributed. Like, I didn't get a Namuro Ren one until I was, like, about to quit, but that happens, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I really liked Namuro Ren as a dynamic because, like, they just kind of respect each other, and Namuro's just like, hey, you're alright for a rich kid. I'll protect you, you little dingus. And then Ren's just like, I just like video games. This is hard.
God, Ren. Ren is a lot. But I mean, I didn't get many Ren scenes at all, so I didn't get the Ren Namoro stuff either.
And this is like the danger of having 12 characters.
Well,
like 12 characters with this specific setup for characterization events.
Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying.
I'm not sure there's a better way though besides just printing out novels, like 12 novels. I don't know, have like set party stuff where they actually talk about shit and shoot the shit. This is how like real games do it.
I mean, it's not that far different from the skit system. It's just more sporadic. And like the skit system is really fucking good. It's just you've got to lean into it harder rather than having it kind of be tacked on in this weird context where they're missable, and if you press the wrong button at that menu, then you skip them anyway.
Yeah, also, the thing is, I think this is just because they had to basically develop it for the Vita first.
Maybe.
Like, a lot of this problem would probably be solved if they could, like, oh, we're going to have this on PS3 and PS4, and we can have chatter during the missions where they have these discussions while you're exploring these zones. That would be alright.
Yeah, it does have this weird compromise on kind of the handheld design, because it's very mission-based, which is a handheld thing. You do the same things over and over again, which is kind of, like, there are lots of other handheld games like that, but the missions are really fucking long.
Compile Heart games aren't handheld and they're all mission-based.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it is a handheld thing, except it's also now a niche JRPG thing on consoles regardless.
Also, Neptunia was always mission-based even when it wasn't on Vita. I feel like we're hitting, like, the second renaissance where, like, people are getting into making JRPGs. I can't even say that about Trace. They've been here from the fucking start. What the fuck are they doing?
Well, I want to believe this game was pitched by Spike Chunsoft, even though they've also made JRPGs for a long time, but they haven't recently.
Yeah, they're mostly focused on, like, a lot of other stuff. But yeah, like, I don't know. I feel like some JRPG developers just like, oh yeah, mission-based, because they see that, like, Neptunia gets away with it, and handheld stuff does it, so they just like, oh, I'm gonna do that on the big game, and then, I don't know.
It also spares doing a world map, which is this whole contested thing, and...
Yeah.
You know, where do we stand on world maps? Like, I still like them, but I think they are not actually a good design structure. And brief moment to appreciate the fact that this game's the closest thing this game has to a world map is one of the most gloriously batshit constructions in video games.
It's a Dyson cylinder. What's up with this shit?
It's right up there with Resonance of Fate's fucking pillar of clock.
What is the Resonance of Fate, or not Resonance of Fate? What is the Exist Archive world called? Man, those are both really just mouthful names.
Proto-Alexa.
Proto-Alexa.
Because I was calling it the Float. I'm like, that's not right. That's a different game.
That is a different game. Whoops. No, it's Proto-Alexa. It is a conduit by which the souls of the dead are redistributed around the galaxy to their new lives.
Yeah, basically, it establishes that the universe is a closed system, and souls are redistributed, which solves one problem with the whole reincarnation, how many souls are there theory stuff, but that's, like, this game is not smart enough to actually grip that, so it's just kind of like a weird setting thing.
I also don't think it's about that, right?
It's not. It uses it as a backdrop, but it's like a dumb backdrop.
Yeah, it's not. That's one of the things I find really endearing about it. Is it's got all the nonsense tri-ace style of lore building in it, but the actual story doesn't care about that at all, and is kind of much more down to earth.
I don't think the setting is dumb. Rather, it's that Zenobia, Amatsune, and Yamatoga have no charisma, and there's no sense of this place actually being used to do anything or functioning at all. Like, the world building just doesn't get there. But if someone was, like, actually invested in the setting, it could be pretty cool and good.
Yeah, but Trace clearly isn't, and none of its fans are.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say it's fine how it is, but it also didn't bug me because there's just enough that it works. I don't know if Trice actually manages to make their stuff work most of the time.
No. Star Ocean 3 ends with you finding out that the entire universe is a 4D MMO for aliens.
VR, right? That still sounds like amazing.
That still could be true of Exist Archive. Like, this is a bullshit video game explanation for how souls work.
I can't wait for Exist Archive 2 then.
Fuck. No.
Things that are definitely never going to happen because this game sold like 4 copies.
It went $15K in Japan, which is not enough. I think.
No,
I mean, that's
not
still. I think considering the budget, I think that's within Spike Chunsoft's projections for the game. But it wasn't like, oh, we're gonna make a sequel now.
Yeah. Right. So.
Fuck. I don't know.
Well, Becky said the game, the writing was grounded, and I think I agree. In that, I mean, someone's gonna say it, I might as well say it. It's similar to a Hashino Persona game because it's high schoolers with problems. But the difference between Exist Archive and Persona is that, besides Kanata, the characters aren't defined by their experience in the JRPG stuff. Instead, it's like the separation from their life at home that gets them to have a new realization of how they related to their community and how they can, improve their lives back on Earth, or how to become a better person, basically. And so it's not like I awakened a new Xenofactor power and now I understand life better, or I hit my social link with Protagonist Kun and now I'm better. They actually just go through their own trials and tribulations and then grow up, come into self-awareness about themselves. And it's very, I don't want to say realistic, but it's grounded naturalistic in that it's just high school problems. And it's not...
It's more comprehensible.
It's not reaching. Yeah.
And this is really where I get down to, this is a game I appreciate. It's got a very consistent focus on what the source of those problems is. Everyone fundamentally is about their relationship to their family. And what you discover as you go through these stories is that, particularly for... not Hotaru, what's her name? Koharu. But it's also there for Ranzei, and I think it's there for Kanata as well.
It's
and
there
a few
for
of the others.
Ren and sort of for Suzaku.
I mean, particularly, it's the way that parents hold their children in contempt, and this real sense of the previous generation being a bunch of shits, basically, and that being the source of these characters' problems that they have to work through. And, the 3 demigod type figures in Protalexa aren't particularly interesting characters on their own, but interpreted as kind of allegorical for parental strife, I think they work. Because they have this, in some ways, completely petty, irrelevant power struggle going on.
Mommy and Daddy are fighting in Exist Archive.
I mean, it kind of is, right?
No, I'm not joking.
Please
I was kind of joking.
Please don't call Yamatoga Daddy.
Yamatoga Daddy.
Let the record show that I didn't say it, right?
I said it.
This is a call-out post for Leroy. He's no longer a good boy.
Rejected. I will not second this motion. That structure still works. So, weird as it is to say that a game like this is cohesive, there is a thread running through it that ties all these experiences together. And if it had just gone a little bit further, I think it could have done something really interesting. Because the central character pairing is still like Kanata, who is completely bland and boring and interesting in exactly the way that Yamatoga is.
I wrote so many fucking paragraphs on Kanata, which I guess I'll get to. He's not interesting, it's my fault.
Yeah, but he's in an arranged engagement to Ranzei, and the game is so clear that they are not a terribly good couple, and they will turn into their parents if they go ahead with their relationship. And if the game had actually committed to that rather than having a stereotypical happy ending, I would be on the barricades defending this thing as one of the great pieces of art of its time.
They did the coward kind of like a coward's way out, but I kind of think they do commit to that. They just go really they jump off the deep end. I would say the ending that reaffirms all that shit that's happening the whole game is the ending where Kanata betrays the party. Because the problem with the Ranzei-Kanata relationship, I mean, Ranzei's an overbearing person, will probably grow up to be a Tory, a conservative mom. I'm confident in that. But it's not her fault. Kanata's the one at fault for sure, because he's a piece of shit.
Well, I mean, he's not at fault for how Ranzai develops. Like, Ranzai's parents are more at fault for that. But, like,
yeah.
Kanata is the one in which the moral flaws are located, generally, apart from definitely Ranzai's path being to the establishment.
I mean, Kanata acts like a spoiled rich kid. Once, like, when it's even, like, that's his backstory, basically. Once he hits high school, he realizes he's set for life because Ranzai will take care of him. And so he treats Ranzai like a surrogate mom.
Yeah. Also, they don't explain this. I had to fucking pop open the profile on his stupid status page to read this, but he's like a first-generation spoiled rich kid because his parents are entrepreneurs, and they made it big, and they got in good with Ranzai's parents, and that's how he's set for life, basically.
He's the kind of kid I went to school with.
He's the kind of kid I would beat the shit out of.
And Mitsuhide, like, gives him shit all the time, and wants him to be better, and he won't be better. And yeah, I mean, it's a weird relationship because Kanata, the whole time in the game, Kanata is trying to be good, but the only reason he's trying to be good is because at the start of the game, Ranzai, like, destroys him. He just gets, like, he's on the verge of a mental break the entire game, and that's why he's trying to be the best person he can be, which still isn't that great.
It's an incredible opening. They get hit by a fucking asteroid, and then they're lying in the bottom of the crater dying. It's not actually an asteroid, but go with me. And Ranzai just tells Kanata that she doesn't want to die with him. It's amazing! I love it. It's so good.
The script writers even know it's a brutal fucking line to start the game with. They're just like, yep,
good.
We went there.
And then they don't go there ever again because the resolution is crap.
No,
sorry.
they come back. They actually.
I know they came back. I still hate how.
No.
I don't.
No, they come back to that line. Kanata says that line to Ranzai when he kills her.
That's good.
Okay, that's good.
That's in the Dark Souls ending. But Kanata looks at Ranzai and says, "I don't want to die with you," and then kills her.
I was going to say, can you like give us a quick rundown of the other two endings? Because like Devin and I only got one ending, and we got the same ending, I think.
Yeah.
But like you did the others.
Okay, well the Amatsune ending isn't. There's nothing to it. What happens is that instead of doing the last dungeon, because you got tricked by Zenobia and gave Amatsune the 2 crystals, just like a gotcha thing where Amatsune becomes like Yamatoga and you have to fight her. And then when you destroy her, Zenobia gets access to all the souls and no one can go home. And then it ends without anyone even talking about it or angsting or anything. It's just like a total gotcha on the player. Probably shouldn't even be there.
Well, given how easy it would be to get that ending accidentally, that should not be there. But also, it's hilarious that it is.
That's like getting the mid-boss death ending if you fail to beat Vyers in like your first encounter with him in Disgaea, and it just loops you around the first chapter.
Yeah, it is like that.
You get a special credit song for that where he sings at you for fucking up, and it's just like, that's good. That's Disgaea.
But Exists Archive isn't a joke. It's just fuck you for no reason.
Yeah.
But okay, the other ending is... The way it's set up is pretty interesting because you can't get it after you make the choice at Chapter 10 where Kanata decides if he's going to send people home or not. He's deciding if he's going to send people home or not, but there's like this third option at the bottom that creeps into your view where it just says, go home by yourself and ignore everyone else. And if you've been obsessing over Kanata's character like me, that makes sense. But if you've just been playing and ignoring the tells or anything, you look at that and be like, what is that? I'm not going to pick that. Why is that there? But that that's that third option's there is because Kanata has probably been thinking about it the whole time that he could do that. So you pick the option where you're going to go home by yourself, and you power up. Everyone gets like as much power up as if you sent everyone home because Kanata mind melds with Yamatoga like more than he ever did before. But then the game plays like normal, and I was like, why did I pick that choice? Nothing happened. I couldn't really tell a difference, except there's one cutscene where they're still being like beating around the bush. They think they're clever, where Yamatoga's like, what are you thinking? Or what are you going to do now? Kanata, I don't understand. And Kanata just laughs, does like an evil laugh. And I'm just like, okay.
This is as you're playing through chapters 10, 11, 12, having made that choice.
Yes, that's like the only different cutscene, is that one cutscene. Until the very end, after you beat Zenobia, you have to still beat Zenobia and play the whole game. Then when Amatsune is going to send everyone home, Kanato will walk up to Amatsune and say, "You're not going to send anyone home. You're going to send me home with Xenofactor or I will kill you." And then the whole party rushes in and says, well, "What the fuck? I thought we were going to go home together. Why were we doing all this?" And Kanata's like, What we? I was doing all the work. You guys just like trolled along and you guys weren't even taking it seriously as I was. No, I'm going home." And then Matsuda's like, "Oh, I'm going to stop you, Kanata. You're not thinking straight." And Kanata basically goes, "This is the clearest I've been thinking ever." And then he just kills Mitsuhide. And then, then you have to knock down all your party members all the way through down to fighting Ranze. And Ranze says, I will kill you, Kanata, if it's the last thing I do. And then Kanata says, "I don't want to die here with you."
Right, yeah, so, that's an interesting ending, but I'm not sure it's the ending that actually delivers on the theme.
No, well, it's a Dark Souls ending.
It depends whether the theme is Kanata is a bad person, or the theme is Kanata and Ranze are a bad couple.
Yeah.
And to me, that second theme is the more interesting one, especially for a game like this to address.
I said it was too edgy.
Yeah.
They definitely wouldn't have made this the sole ending. Like, this is just like a what if, as kind of an auxiliary thing to.
I wouldn't say as just a what if. I think it's a confirmation that Kanata is a sucky person.
Yeah.
But through a what if.
Yeah.
Because Kanata's like, I don't know, he's like Yosuke basically, but he hides it because he's in the leader role, or he hides it because he's allowed to get away with it. I don't know. But like, I feel like that ending's just to make sure everyone in the room knows that Kanata's actually not the good person in the story.
Yeah.
But
it's a what if, but it's not very far removed from reality. Like this is a way things could have gone very easily, rather than like completely out of thin air.
It's a half-degree turn instead of just like this is a 180. It's just like, nah, this is like one bad day, and Kanata probably would have done this.
Yeah.
Like, this is entirely within the scope of his character and his mental state.
But then, like, the ending, the good ending, as it were, is such a sellout on everything. Like, just everything's magically happy, and Mayura's magically cured, and they all get back together, and there's no loss or mourning or anything.
There's like a partial reason to that. If you send Ranze home, Kanata and Ranze break up. And I feel
do they?
Yeah, and I feel like they just kind of just accept that as what actually happened too. Which
right.
is it's another like modular. Did you see this writing or not? But yeah, if you send Ranze home, that's basically the catalyst of them separating for real. And kind of just like, for what it's worth, I wanted to be with you. And Ranze's like, that's what I hate about you. You just accept whatever's offered you. You never try to change anything. You never try to go against the grain, basically. And she says, I was not going to do what my parents told me to. And then she leaves.
That's Ranze showing at least a modicum of promise, then.
Yeah. Ranze is like the most mature, but also like in ways that are terrible.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
it is the conventional civilizing model of maturity, right? Where mature means you're the one who's most willing to play the role capitalism assigns to you.
Exactly. I mean, that's kind of what I meant, yeah.
And there's no indication that Ranze is sensitive to that in the sense, like she's self-aware about it or anything. She's not. But yeah, there's some deep programming in us to get us to recognize that a certain way. Even if we can be self-aware about this is ideology, there's a force that's making that manifest to us as a positive thing. And it's not, right? The actual positive characters are like Koharu or Yui.
Actually, Mamoru, despite being a mercenary, is probably one of the more like, they don't get into it because they want him to just be like a cleaner with a mysterious background, but he's like actually kind of a good dude, and he tries to encourage Mitsuhide to like get a job where his skills would be useful, even if that is like a cleaner.
Namuro is a good presentation of masculinity, but it's like Yakuza the video game kind of way where Namuro wouldn't exist in real life. But yeah.
And like Mitsuhide is interesting as well, because I don't know how rich his parents are supposed to be, but he kind of comes across as a foil to Kanata who is lower down the class structure.
Yeah, I think he's supposed to be more of an everyman, and he just happens to get into, like, target shooting because it's his grandpa's deal. And, they were probably, like, they weren't like Yui, where it's just, like, we have to struggle to make ends meet, but, like, they're comfortable. Comfortable Japanese family.
I mean, they all go to the same high school, and it's probably a private school. That's what I gathered.
Yeah, like,
but
that's where that reading breaks down.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I guess the good thing about Mitsuhide, he actually really, really cares about Kanata and Ranze and Koharu, which usually the bro character like that doesn't.
Yeah,
like I thought this was going to be a Junpei, and he's actually just like, no, I love all my friends and I want the best for him.
He would be a better fucking protagonist than Kanata.
Yeah, but if he was the protagonist, he would be an asshole. So, like, he's a likable character. I'm not going to deny that, and I got a lot of his relationship with Namuro, which is really interesting, but I think it's a fairly positive relationship, even, like, because it kind of casts Namuro in a parental role.
Yeah, they never I don't think they specify how old Namuro is. Because, like, he's the most likely to be apart from the teen dynamic.
He's late 20s, I'm sure. I don't remember looking. I feel like I saw 29 when I hit triangle on his profile, but I could just be, like, imagining that.
Yeah.
It's a mystery. Don't correct us. I'm not firing Exist Archive up again. It's holding up my PS4 right now.
They're not all teens either. Yui and Emma are college aged.
That's interesting.
Right. I did recognize that when I looked at Emma, because, like, Emma's weird as, like, a character who comes in way too late.
Actually, I just don't want to talk about him that much, but
yeah, yeah.
I mean, Kagato and Emma are top of the list of characters that this game would be better off without.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, there's no need for those two characters to be in this game, and there's some really ableist stuff around them.
Yeah, I was going to say they use disability as, like, the reason why these characters have like heavy problems that also, like, crosses over them making bad moral choices, and it's like, no, what is this?
Yeah, it's got issues.
Emma's is the only outfit that's tolerable. Maybe.
I've also want to bring up I compared this game a lot to Durarara with its cast of characters, and I think this cast of characters is equally as large as Durarara's cast, but kind of transplanted out of context that make smaller cliques of them interesting to look at. I don't know if either of you two have watched this anime that I'm talking about.
I have not.
Yeah, I haven't watched it.
Okay, then I'm not gonna get into it. But basically,
most people have though, so they'll know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like there's some stuff with gangs that Kagato kind of reminds me of. What's his face? I forget his name. It's the main asshole gang member of Durarara. And I forget his name, but he's the dude with a knife who just does a bunch of dumb shit to piss everybody off. And, like, the entirety of Durarara is, like, interactions between gangs set in this Japanese city. But, like, there's supernatural elements in that. It's an interesting series, and I feel like if these characters all were back in Japan instead of this severed area, the severed setting where they were all just trying to get back to Japan anyway, it might be a bit more interesting for me. But, like, I don't know. It transplants people who are worried about wanting to get home into a place that doesn't really have an interesting plot or reason to exist for me. And, like, that was my biggest problem with this game, was, like, the setting is the entire reason the game exists. The entire reason the game exists, Archives. And I'd rather see these characters in their natural habitats, which goes against the point of the game.
It's definitely like the writer will do something stuff, right? Because it's obvious, like, to some extent, the setting and the mechanics and how the game's going to, like, work on a pipeline decision-making level was decided, and then they had some good writers, and then they wrote a story with it. And so, yeah, that mashup is often how video games turn out.
Yeah, but it feels especially arbitrary and especially forced here for me.
Random thought provoked by what Leroy is saying about the writers. Is there a character in this who is just comic relief? Does Yui count?
I mean, I think everyone takes turns being comic relief, which is
Yeah.
That's the kind of interaction I actually really like. In that,
Yeah, like
they don't pick on one character, except Koharu would probably fit the bill.
I mean, well, Koharu is the picked on character, definitely, but the picking on isn't funny. Maybe it's intended to be funny. I think that's maybe that's just a misstep in the writing. It wouldn't be funny if it was intended to be funny, because it would just be mean.
And
But,
I think
like-
I think Ranze is also, most of her scenes are supposed to be funny too, as in why is she acting like this or whatever, but I don't know.
I hate her.
I'm not going to say
I don't like her.
I'm not going to say I'm on the spectrum because I'm not sure, but a lot of the times when they're making fun of Ranze, it just seemed like she does not understand the conversation on that level, like at her stage in that life, so it just, I don't know, making fun of her also seemed in bad taste.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely, like, there is an archetype of the, like, studious, pleasing her parents focused, like...
Yamato Nadeshiko?
Yeah, but they
Pass.
really exaggerated the character.
Yeah.
It's got the Spike Chunsoft problem. We were kind of joking this is basically a Danganronpa game. Every one of the character designs is fucking ridiculous. Thanks, Love Plus Guy. And also the characters are exaggerated in some silly ways sometimes.
Well, it's less extreme than Danganronpa, which kind of, like, in Danganronpa, the exaggerated character types are to an effect, right? That game's whole thing is excess, whereas this doesn't push it far enough to have that effect, but it pushes it too far sometimes to be...
It's an uncanny valley.
Yeah. Well, let's be careful with that term, but kinda. Do we have anything else? We want to say about the game?
We didn't talk about the battles at all.
Battles suck.
I mean,
Fight me.
like...
But make sure you use your Demon's Greed attack before you land the final hit, or you'll miss and won't do any fucking damage to me.
There are a lot of weird quirks with the battle system that are just poorly thought out. It's very poorly balanced, and it's basically the Valkyrie Profile 1 system, but
You can watch Becky stream and see how you end up just doing the same thing over and over again. Even though there's 100 skills and everyone has like 10 moves they can pick
12
out,
classes.
and there's 12 classes, you just end up doing the same thing over and over again.
yeah, like the combat system isn't good. It's maximal but not good.
I read someone say it's better than Valkyrie Profile. I was like, I don't know.
I mean,
I've never played Valkyrie Profile, but I already felt like I can't believe you.
I've only played a little bit of Valkyrie Profile, and in the first level there is an enemy type that have shields that can, and in order to damage them with regular attacks, you have to stun them with a magic attack first. And it works exactly like it does in this game if all spells were at least 2 charge time. So you can literally only damage these fucking things every other turn. There's nothing else you can do to them. So it might well be that this game is not... the combat in this game is not significantly worse than Valkyrie Profile 1, is what I'm saying. Like, maybe Valkyrie Profile
so
gets
many
better
years
after
later.
that. It's so many years later, but there hasn't been a lot of time invested in a combat system like Valkyrie Profile 1's.
When it comes to the thread Becky was talking about, I have not seen a story about characters drifting apart in a video game besides like cheesy jealousy mechanics. And Exist Archive has 2 characters, Kanta and Ranze, brutally and horribly drifting apart. So, like, I mean, it's not like interesting ground for storytelling, but I get excited when RPGs are about negative things because the structure of RPGs encourages overwhelming positivity and like continually growing up as a person to like match up with the increasing numbers and stuff. And it's rare to have a game that like you can increase all the characters in affection, and there's all kinds of feedback of how much better they're getting as fighting and as people and as a community, but then something is still going really badly wrong for the player avatar, and there's nothing you can do to change it. Like, it doesn't matter how much better Kanta gets, their relationship, him and Ranze, is just like broken. And that core of Exist Archive is actually pretty fun as far as it goes. Well, I say fun as in, like, I enjoy it for those reasons.
Yeah, well, there again is that if this was 15 hours long and they stuck the ending, it's that business we talked about last month of playing the game in your head rather than the one that's on the disc.
I feel like the ending is also like a product of a game that is 60 to 80 hours long. For me, I put 100 hours in the game. Woohoo! But but once you like. once you put all those hours in the game, you pretty much, it's like Stockholmed into expecting something that wraps up all the ends. And I kind of believe that they had like a difference of opinion on what the ending should be, and that's why there's 3 of them.
I think that feels like too much credit to me. Like, the game has 3 endings because games, like, it's a fetish thing in games. It's
Valkyrie Profile
endings.
also has multiple endings.
Mm.
But I don't think the endings in this game are as bad as just there's just endings for the sake of it. Like, they're all, besides the Yamatsune one, the 2 endings are 2 different logical outcomes of the story, in my opinion.
No, that's certainly true. But I don't think when they were writing the design doc, they started with, here's how it's going to end. No, I disagree. We should do this ending.
Yeah,
and then somebody went, Brainwave will have 2 endings. I think they went, we're going to have 2 endings. Figure out what they are.
That makes sense.
And then when the argument broke out over what the good ending should be, they went, well, that's clearly the bad ending. Let's just put it in the bad ending.
I agree there. Well, I mean, the best thing they could have done is just, like, have the ending be bittersweet, because the game is bittersweet, but, I mean, video games never end like that, do they?
The happy ending scene is so insubstantial that it doesn't actually heal anything that is unhealed by the end of the game.
Or, well, it doesn't even end, I guess that's true.
You still know that Ranze and Kanata are going to get married, and it's going to be a rubbish wet marriage. Loveless and horrible, and they're going to fuck up their kids who are probably going to make the same mistakes.
I actually didn't get that impression, because the whole ending sequence is Kanata being one-on-one with Mayura in a very long scene, and then they're staring into each other's eyes and the credits roll. I think that...
Yeah, that's
I don't
true.
want to be analyzing the authorial intent of Trice, though, but it seemed like they're saying that the Kanata Ranze's out.
Well, there is this... In the attract mode sequence, which is like a unique animated sequence, by the way. Like, it's not cut up from stuff that appears in the game. It does the kind of anime opening sequence thing as if this story were a love triangle between Kanata, Ranze, and Mayura.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's where Kanata's holding hands with someone, but they don't show who it is.
Yeah, except that they do, because it's very clear in silhouette that it's Mayura.
And they also show up in, like, this pyramid triad. It's Kanata, Mayura, and Ranze.
Yeah.
When it's not a love triangle at all. It's Kanata and Ranze hate each other, and Mayura's there watching.
It goes back to the mummy and daddy are fighting thing, right?
Ranze's the mom and Kanata's the dad.
Yeah, here's this established conservative couple and a romantic interest for the man that is leading astray, which is also the metaphor that's being explored with Yamatoga, Zenobia, Amatsume. And I guess they were trying to build that parallel, but also there's nothing in the main body of the game to suggest that. It's just right at the start and right at the end. Which I suppose that's also very Resonance of Fate, because there's that second fucking attract mode in Resonance of Fate as well.
All the interactions with Ranze and the other characters, though, she's acting in a very motherly role, but not like motherly as in a good way like Yui, but motherly as in, why aren't you doing this thing that I thought that you should do all the time? There's a very extended joke in the post game where everyone's playing with a floating table. Like, literally everyone has their turn standing on the floating table, except for Kanta and Ranze. And when Ranze finds out, she lectures everyone about what they're doing, and I can't believe you're doing this, and how old are you? And everything a mom would say. And I mean, this is like a joke sequence only in the post game, but it shows their intention was Ranze's the mom of the group. And Kanata the whole time watches them do the thing, and he's like, you guys shouldn't do this every single time, but he just doesn't stop them. He doesn't do anything, just like, a crappy dad would do.
Oh god, this is so many parents that I knew of, like, people I was at school with, and slightly my parents as well. But like,
there is. I got the impression that Kanata is trying, when he tries to be the do everything right, cool-headed guy, he becomes like this patriarchal figure over everyone, and they don't need his parenting or helicoptering, because everyone has the same power he does, and everyone can get along with each other without Kanata, but Kanata, like, inserts himself as that authority role, because otherwise he doesn't know what else to do.
I'm not sure about that, because there are a few scenes along the way where different characters who are in their own way competent tell Kanata that he's the leader. And he's like, oh, I don't really know why everybody's looking to me, and I don't feel like I'm in charge, or I know what I'm doing. And then others, particularly Namuro, are like, no, you aren't clearly in charge and leading us, and you should keep doing that. So what you're saying doesn't match my experience of the game, but it would definitely be better if the game was like that. So you might have seen a different set of cutscenes.
I just saw all the cutscenes where they end up making fun of Kanata, or Kanata's the butt of the jokes, which happens actually quite often. But, I mean, I don't know. Like, that just seems like Kanata's deferred because he's a lead character rather than he actually has anything to offer. Like, it's true, the characters tell him he's a great leader, but that happens in Persona as well, when the protagonist isn't doing anything either.
I guess you could pass it as like...
I mean, I'm saying, I agree that the game is saying Kanata's the leader, but I'm saying, like, my textual interpretation is Kanata's a crummy leader.
Oh, he is. But I think you could pass it as like, well, in a way they defer to him because he's the one capitalism would most pick. Like, the actual social structure they come from would say, this is the person you should look to, even though, like, in this case, he's mediocre.
Well, yeah, in the first place, like, that's kind of what I meant, in that Kanata becomes the leader because he inserts himself into the role, because that's what he thinks he's supposed to do. Like even if later he says, I don't even know why I'm the leader, in the first place he's the one telling, like, at the beginning when people don't know what to do, he tells everyone what to do. Then later when everyone knows what to do, he's just kind of coasting.
Well, I guess, I mean, he tells everyone what to do because he's the one with the most direct connection to Yamatoga.
Yes. Yeah.
But then that in itself is a positional thing. It's not something that Kanata understands as Kanata's decision. It emerges out of what we're supposed to accept as the naturalistic thing, which is, well, this is the patrilineal line. The expertise comes from Yamatoga, the father figure, to the patriarchal-ish inheritor of that.
I just have, like, two slight... Like, the two slight things is that Kanata begins to actually admire Yamatoga, which is part of the reason why he sucks. And that Kanata remembers a throw-off line that Yamatoga says that Yamatoga doesn't give a shit about, which is, it's your will and your will alone that will... I don't remember the rest, but you probably remember the line because Kanata says it like 4 times.
I don't, but...
Oh, really? Well, in every ending, Kanata says that line in different contexts. Like, in the good ending, Kanata says it to Yamatoga, like, wow, my will alone, everyone's fine. In the bad ending, Kanata says the same line again. It was my will alone, and now I'm going to go home and become the dictator of the world or whatever he wants to do. And even in the Yamatsune ending, he's like really forlorn. He says, my will alone, huh? When, of course, the Yamatoga is trying to manipulate Kanata when he says that, so it's not even his will at all. So, I mean, it is kind of a capitalist mantra of bootstraps, I guess, but...
Well, working on a thing about the role of will rhetoric in capitalism. I don't know when it's going to emerge or whatever. It's probably going to be about FF13 too, more or less, and time travel, because that makes sense in my head. But any time that you see people talk about free will, immediately that's capitalism. So I think, I'm not sure we're disagreeing. I think we're pointing to different data points and taking them in slightly different, like having had different experiences of them, because bloody hell, it's possible to have very divergent experiences of this game. And like, that's interesting in its own right. And it's clear, particularly from what you've said about the alternate endings, that somebody on the writing staff of this game is really good and is being squandered.
Yeah.
Like, there's some super sensitive stuff here and there, like that motif that you pick out about will and will alone, like, I don't want to die with you, that sentiment.
What I was getting to is, if you combine this with the mental state of Kanata after Ranze says, I don't want to die with you, the only person who gone through any kind of interpersonal conflict with the group, combined with his actual admiration for Yamatoga, who all counts as a shitty person, and every single person in the party is able to see that except Kanata.
Yeah.
That's when I feel like Kanata's basically posing and acting and compensating and trying really hard to be a leader.
Yeah, so I guess maybe where we're diverging then is in how we interpret saying that it is Kanata's intention or Kanata's choice. Because I totally agree with you, but I think what the game is suggesting is that Kanata himself doesn't realize any of that.
Well, I don't want to suggest Kanata's self-aware, because that's not true. My big conclusion here is that what someone was trying to do was show a presentation of fragile and entitled masculinity, but in a way that's not like, besides the bad ending, it's not like in your face or super cheesy about it. It's just a bunch of microaggressions that add up to a spoiled brat.
Yeah.
But like, when I compare like Kanata to Yosuke, I think Exist Archive actually goes raw and goes to places that shows the entire room. Like I said before, that Kanata sucks. Where a game like Persona would try to show these characters in a sympathetic light and go, well, he's not really that bad, and they never do that with Kanata.
Yeah, so I guess my complaint with it, if it's a complaint, is that because it's not being sympathetic, it doesn't show the psychological mechanism that is actually... It's not clear about what the psychological mechanism is that gets people like Kanata to behave like that. And there are ways to portray that without being sympathetic to the character, but they are one step further than the game goes. Like, there aren't kind of lengthy internal monologue sections where Kanata's justifications to himself are explored.
Yeah, I mean, that is a weakness, because I'm doing a lot of heavy lifting on the part of the games, or on the part of the text. There's another scene in canon, though, where Yamatoga reveals what Kanata actually thinks of Koharu, Mitsuhide, and Ranze, and it's all negative. Every single, it's overwhelmingly negative, to the point where Mitsuhide was so shocked, he's like, that's not really true, is it, Kanata? And Kanata goes, yeah, Yamatoga's just lying. Why would he say that, right? And Mitsuhide goes, yeah, of course he's just lying. But I mean, and this is in the good ending. This isn't in the bad ending. And Kanata, it's revealed that Kanata thinks Mitsuhide is overall a flake, that Ranze is overbearing and doesn't care about anyone. But at the same time, Yamatoga says that Kanata frequently, he fantasizes about Ranze all the time. Yamatoga says that. And Yamatoga says Koharu is a ditz and isn't good at anything she does. And those are things I can't picture any of the characters except Ranze actually thinking. But I guess that's still I mean, the reason why I became fascinated about it is because they're subtle tells, where usually when this kind of character shows up in a video game, it's like comic book anti-hero, where this character sucks to the point where he sucks so bad, the person who sucks in the same way starts to relate to them. Whereas you can play through the entire game of Exist Archive and just think Kanata's another Blandcoon, because he acts precisely like a Blandcoon in a way that shows that Blandcoon characters in real life are assholes. But it's not a character study of that kind of character, I guess. It's just I don't know where I'm going.
Well, I mean, I guess to its credit, what it ends up being is sympathetic to the people who have to live with people like that, which is a better side to take anyway. But that does get in the way of it actually saying, well, here's how this goes wrong. A better work would be, among other things, a prompt to self-reflection among people who are like Kanata. And where this game fails is exactly what you picked up on, is that it doesn't actually challenge the Kanatas of the world to recognise the harm that is implicit in their way of being in the world. Which, that's clearly beyond Tri-Ace.
Yeah, I mean, it's innately defeatist, and it's defeatist in a way I enjoy, and I'm like, I get a lot out of this because I fucking hate people like this. But then that's it, you don't get anything else out of it.
I think that covers it. Do you have questions?
We have 3 questions.
I actually have a question.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, lead with it.
Okay. Why do you think Exist Archive sold so little, right? Because this is a contemporary game. I've played 3 games on the PS4 now, so my experience is very skewed. I've played Omega Quintet, Persona 5, and now Exist Archive. And I don't really know how JRPGs look on this gen, and all 3 of those games are kind of different in big ways.
I think it is timing, to be honest. I think if this game had come out in the West 6 months or a year earlier, it would have done a lot better. But it came out the month before World of Final Fantasy. And if you had to pick one of those 2 games, you'd pick World of Final Fantasy.
Also, it came out after Star Ocean 5, which people say is one of the worst games JRPGs they've ever played, to the point that they considered that they were done with JRPGs because they played Star Ocean 5.
Yeah, and Star Ocean 5 would have taken the Tri-Ace fans' attention, whereas if this game had come out in isolation, it might have had more kind of those weird Tri-Ace fans who love everything that Tri-Ace does for some reason. But yeah, I think, without wanting to endorse the idea that there was a rebirth of the JRPGs, it came out during the rebirth of the JRPGs, at the start of the rebirth of the JRPG, where everybody's eyes were on something else that was approaching fast.
Especially in the West, where it had a delayed launch compared to... I don't know if there's a relatively close by release compared to its Japan date.
Must be Persona 5's Japan release.
Was it?
Yeah, because Persona 5 had a quite long lead time in Japan, right?
I think Persona 5 was a couple months away from Exist Archive, yeah.
Which is comparable to the US gap to FF15, I think.
I mean,
Or
there was
maybe
also
I'm
World of
wrong.
Final Fantasy for the people who were wanting
Maybe
older school.
maybe Final Fantasy 15 was the one coming out soon. I don't know.
But so I had something else I wanted to say, and yeah, actually, my experience of it, right? When I first saw Exist Archive, I was really, really interested. I thought that looks maybe not good, but super interesting, and I was really looking forward to it. I was keeping track of it, and I didn't buy it when it came out because it was a month before World of Final Fantasy and 2 months before something else that I knew I was going to spend money on. So I wasn't paying for a full price release title at the same time because I can only buy and play so many games.
Right.
So I really think it's an example of what would have happened to something like The Last Remnant if it had emerged at a time where the JRPG genre was perceived as more healthy, which is to say it sunk without trace.
I guess given that answer, I guess what part 2 of the question is, if Exist Archive was in a drought or timed in a place where people would buy it, do you think like new IPs can get an audience or a fan base anymore, or is the JRPG base more like a syndicate of different people dedicated to different franchises and they don't really want to play new IPs that much?
I mean, if it had succeeded significantly, it would have been on the back of Valkyrie Profile anyway. So
I guess that is true.
like it wouldn't have succeeded as a new property. And I think, grim as it is to say, I'm not convinced that the closest things we've got to new properties, which is Tokyo RPG Factory at the moment, doesn't really suggest that new IP is setting the JRPG world on fire.
I mean, Compile Heart tries to they take their Neptunia formula and they try to paint it in a different way to try to get art JRPG fans that aren't like otakus, basically. And then there was the recent Blue Reflection, I think it's called, by Koei Tecmo.
The magical girl.
But it was a magical girl game.
From the developers that do Atelier.
I realized the game had a lot of problems, but it also did not sell very well either.
Nope.
Yeah, I don't know what it would... I mean, the closest thing is Nier Automata, which is not a new product, but has entirely been received as if it's new IP. Like, the reason for Automata's success has nothing to do with the other Drakengard games. So that's the closest thing.
And I don't want to challenge the narrative of the JRPG Renaissance or whatever, because it's somewhat true, but I think on some level it's not the same as how it was on the PlayStation or the Super Nintendo. There aren't new titles coming out necessarily that can like stand on their own, right? It's Dragon Quest is coming out again. You know, Squaresoft's making games, and like all of the long-term companies are all making games at the same time, and that's great. But is that really a new renaissance of the genre?
Well, I mean, I think the test of that will be because Square launched Tokyo RPG Factory. They've now spun off Business Division 2 into its own team with Hajime Tabata. It's going to be the question of whether those organizations can produce a hit. And Tokyo RPG Factory, clearly, so far, barking up the wrong tree, chasing a nostalgia that they don't even really understand, which you've done, Leroy, some great work kind of elucidating. And we don't know what Hajime Tabata is going to do. He has done some interesting stuff in the past.
He also did Final Fantasy 15.
I mean, it's sporadic, right? And that's
I will have an opinion on that within the next month and a half. I own that game. I'm building a PC to play it.
This is going to be
My God,
hilarious.
We're going to have some discussions.
And I guess, unfortunately, that is an axiom, right? If Square Enix can't do it, who can do it?
Well, it's not. I don't think this is a problem that's unique to JRPGs.
No. I don't mean to suggest that. I just want to, like... I see anime fans say stuff like, you know... and we kind of bought into it, too. Like, JRPGs are on a new rise up or whatever. JRPGs are back. And they are back. But, like, they're not back in the same way, right? They're back in when the JRPGs are back, it's like they are another apparatus of the video game industry as it exists in 2018.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is maybe not like the best thing that could happen for the genre.
I'm not sure we've bought into this.
No. I mean, we were just like, you know, JRPGs aren't dead, which was a necessary thing to say for a bit.
Yeah, and like saying JRPGs aren't dead is not the same as saying JRPGs are back. In a way, it's incompatible with that. And a lot of the writing we did at the start of this project was, by the way, like they were never dead. But it is worth taking that time now, 2.5 years later, to say By the way, don't think that our perspective on that has shifted. Because it hasn't.
Don't get it twisted. Yeah. Y'all are smarter than me, and I've been not paying attention to stuff, but because I've been playing Picross, but... Sorry, you went on for like fucking 10 minutes. I got out my question. I'm playing Picross. Don't judge me. We have questions. You want to get to those?
Go.
They're not tough.
Good.
From Salary, gay anime girl on Twitter, who is the best girl and why is it Yui?
It's Yui because, like, a game with Yui as the protagonist would be really cool, and I'm fucking gonna make it, basically.
It's Yui because the alternatives are all unfortunately lacking, except for Suzaku. I like Suzaku. She's cool.
I mean, it's got the Final Fantasy 15 problem of what you actually want to play is the game of Koharu, Ranzei, Suzaku.
No, I don't want Ranzei in anything I play. She's... No.
I think, like, she could grow and change if she had the right
yeah,
combination
but then
of people.
I could just like have a different character entirely.
Is it a straight thought crime to like Mayura? Because
she's alright.
As far as those character archetypes go, Mayura is one of the best execution of one of those, in that she does not stay one-dimensional the whole time.
Yeah, I guess so. Like that's another thing where it kind of works at the level of that one good dialogue writer who worked on this game. And yeah, she isn't as annoying as the idea of her that lodged in my head from very early in my first playthrough.
Which was apparently the wedge between Kanata and Ranzei that must be destroyed.
I mean, it kind of was. Like, that's mostly because I liked, like, of all the looks on the characters, I liked Ranzei's best. Mostly because Spear.
She just looks like knockoff Homura from Madoka. Sorry.
I also was like a Ranzei apologist for a long time, until just so much accumulated that I'm like, I don't know, Ranzei would be a Republican mom. I'm kind of tired of this.
Same.
After the second time she laughed at one of her friends being honest with her, I was just like, nah.
That's why Kanata and Ranzei's a great couple, because Kanata also laughs at his friends, he just does it in his head. Great as in entertaining as in terrible couple.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least Kanata will shut the fuck up so I don't have to listen to him, though. Like, ha ha ha, you're so funny.
Let's go back to talking about Yui, because, like,
let's
healing.
Yui is very similar to Mayura, though, except she's just older and wasn't in a coma her whole life. Yui's like if Mayura got to have a life.
I would want to see a Yui in a Disgaea game where she's like a Prism Rangers fan that accidentally gets recruited into Hill's army as like a real Prism Ranger.
That's also a really good concept.
She would fit in Disgaea, actually.
She would fit really well in Disgaea.
God, I want to play Disgaea. I haven't played one in like a year and a half.
Our time will come. A time will come. From Last Sim on Earth, do you guys feel like this game would be improved if they made it an ensemble piece instead of having Kanata be as the definitive protagonist?
Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, the play experience should be improved, but also it would be a completely different game for reasons already discussed.
Yeah, I mean, Kanata is a more interesting protagonist than I first thought, and I can give the game credit to that. I don't know if anyone has played Tokyo Mirage, what the fuck, the Fire Emblem
Sessions.
Yeah. It has a Bland-kun protagonist that everyone loves and is even blander than Kanata, and there's no tension in it. I mean, I'm just saying it could be that bad. It could be a character who talks all the time, but might as well be silent. And Kanata is at least interesting, it's just in a way that's aggressively boring for fiction, but maybe not for JRPGs. But still, like, I would have preferred anyone else to be the main character. An ensemble take on it would have been great. You don't see those very often in that kind of...
Certainly not genuine ensembles.
Like FF6, people call it an ensemble cast, but it's just actually like, it's more like Terra can't be the main character, so Locke's going to have some time to be the main character, and Edgar's going to be the main character, and it's like, okay. But yeah.
Also known as the FF10 problem.
Yeah.
Yep. And our last question from Randomness. What the fuck is being archived exactly? Why is it called this? It's Exist Archive. It's an archive of existence because you funnel all the souls through it and then it does things with them.
Isn't Resonant of Fate like that too? I just don't remember what the resonance for the fate is.
there was none.
No,
I mean,
like
no,
the
the
clock.
thing was, it was originally called End of Eternity because the world was fucking stopped because of God and time and whatever.
That's true.
Like, that was the climax. Resonance of Fate is our weird localized title.
Maybe that's like a retroactive. I'm associating Resonance with time because I played Resonance of Fate and I'm stupid.
It is
But
interesting
the
in
clocks-
fate, at least,
the-
I suppose.
The clocks, dictate people's fate, and then they resonate. No, they don't. Okay.
No, there were quartz crystals that resonated with people's souls because if your quartz broke, you
Oh,
died.
right.
Remember?
But
I
they
think-
they use clocks to keep track of
Except
how
in
long
the
the
end.
course was lasting, but that doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, except
Why are we
when you
reconstructing
shot the court.
Titling of Resonance of Fate.
I just thought maybe it
Because-
was similar, but it's not. Okay, you know what? Star
It's not.
Ocean. There is an ocean of stars.
That's space.
Video games.
Yes.
Video games are like that.
Kingdom Hearts 1.5 and 2.5 HD Remix is the greatest video game title of all time, and let me tell you why.
I mean, I'm glad that Kingdom Hearts literally exists inside Kingdom Hearts. It's a thing. Kingdom Hearts is
Yeah,
the best video
Kingdom
game
Hearts 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue is also very good. Anyway, I have actual opinions on why the Kingdom Hearts compilation things are great.
Could
for names,
you,
but-
when you refer to a game as like Kingdom Hearts 1.5, 2.5 Final Mix, could you say Light 1.5?
Don't bring substitutions into this. I stopped doing math in high school. Please leave me be. Okay. I think we're done.
Yeah, we're done.
We might well be very done.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of DGC. Next month we'll take a look at Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga, specifically the 3DS remake of the game, which was originally made on Game Boy Advance. This game features the titular Mario and Luigi working to save the Mushroom Kingdom's neighbor, the Bean Bean Kingdom, from an evil plot that starts by stealing Princess Peach's voice. The remake features several tweaks that will make the entire game easier, alongside an alternate story mode where you command Bowser's minions through a simple strategy/RPG campaign to save Bowser. I think Becky's already beaten it or
I
is
haven't.
damn close to it.
I died on the second boss of Cackleta's Castle because I suck.
Nice. We're going to be recording it a bit earlier than usual. So I'll try and get the inbox for the questions up earlier than usual as well. Basically, I'm going to put it up right along this episode. So be sure to get your questions in. After that, we're playing Radiant Historia, an Atlas RPG for the DS with a remake on 3DS, which I'm going to hand over description to Leroy.
Radiant Historia is a video game that someone who plays JRPGs would play and say, oh, this is like Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy. But actually, Radiant Historia is kind of about how stupid both Final Fantasy and Chrono Trigger actually are, both in their political aims and how they position their characters relative to like their privilege and power and what they should do with it. And so it's a pretty good game where everything resolves neatly, but in a way that makes you feel good about the future things, and then you turn off the game and like, oh wait, just a game. But it's I mean, it's a great game. Hopefully we'll all have fun playing it, or not.
I'm looking forward to it. Leroy's suggestions for the podcast tend to be a bit more reliable than mine or Becky's.
Sorry.
I'm the one who actually, sat down and was like, yeah, I'm going to play Golden Sun for the podcast, and then I enjoyed it, and neither of you were like, yeah, all of this was good.
I mean, nothing has worked out as badly as fucking Xenogears.
Golden holy shit. No,
Fuck.
Golden Sun is good. I'll just leave it at that.
I meant The Lost Age 2, so...
Well, we discussed that on that episode.
You can find our work on our website, jrpgsaredead.fyi, or our Twitter, jrpgsaredead, or individually at Invisible for me, at Eat the Pen for Becky, and at Was Not Why Not for Leroy. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/deadgenre. Also, please enjoy our affiliated podcasts. I'm joined by Sam Howard on Myth and Kin as we work our way through the Witcher franchise, from books to games, and soon we'll be moving to games, to the chagrin of all. And Leroy and John Thayer can once again be found on World Revolution discussing independent and underground RPGs. Both can be found on our Libsyn feed. Join us next time for episode 33 of Dead Genre Chronicles. Good night, everybody.